There is no light without shadow, no psychic wholeness without imperfection. Carl Jung spoke these words, and they contain one of the most profound secrets about human existence that most people never understand. Right now, as you're watching this video, you might be going through something painful. Maybe you're wondering why life keeps hitting you with challenge after challenge, especially when you're trying your best to grow and become better. Maybe you're asking yourself why the universe seems to conspire against you right when you need peace the most. Tell me in the comments below, where are you watching from? And what's the last time you felt like the universe was testing you? Because what I'm about to share with you will completely change how you see your pain, your struggles, and your entire journey of transformation. You see, there's something that happens to every single person who's ever achieved real spiritual growth, real psychological maturity, real inner peace. And it's not what you think, it's not meditation, it's not positive thinking, it's not even having the right mindset. It's something much more mysterious and much more powerful. It's the secret cycle of pain that precedes every major breakthrough in your life. Jung discovered that the universe operates according to a hidden pattern, a cosmic law that governs human transformation. And this law is both beautiful and terrifying, because it means that your suffering isn't random. Your pain isn't punishment. Your struggles aren't evidence that you're doing something wrong. They're actually evidence that you're doing something profoundly right. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about the biggest transformations you've experienced, the moments when you truly grew, when you became more of who you're meant to be. I'm willing to bet that right before each of those breakthroughs, there was a period of intense difficulty, a relationship that ended just when you thought you were ready for love, a job you lost right when you needed financial security, a friendship that dissolved when you needed support the most. This isn't coincidence. This is the universe's way of preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. But here's what most people don't understand. They think the pain is the problem. They think they need to avoid it, escape it, or push through it as quickly as possible. But Jung revealed something revolutionary. The pain isn't the obstacle to your transformation. The pain is the doorway. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. Have you ever noticed that right before you're about to level up in life, everything seems to fall apart? It's like the universe looks at you and says, not yet, you're not ready. But what if I told you that this apparent chaos is actually the universe's way of saying you're exactly ready? But first, you need to shed who you used to be. Write in the comments if you've ever felt like the universe was conspiring against you just when you needed things to go smoothly. Because what you're about to discover will transform how you see every difficult moment in your life. Jung spent decades studying the human psyche, and he made a discovery that changed psychology forever. He found that every person carries within them what he called the shadow. This shadow isn't just your negative traits or your suppressed emotions. It's everything about yourself that you've rejected, denied, or refused to acknowledge. And here's the crucial part. You cannot become whole, you cannot become who you're truly meant to be until you integrate your shadow. But the mind resists this integration with every fiber of its being. Why? Because integrating your shadow means facing parts of yourself that you've spent years, maybe decades, trying to avoid. It means acknowledging your capacity for anger when you've tried to be the peaceful one, your potential for selfishness when you've tried to be the giving one, your ability to hurt others when you've tried to be the healer. So how does the universe help you with this seemingly impossible task? Through pain, through crisis, through situations that strip away your defenses and force you to see yourself clearly, the universe creates circumstances that make it impossible for you to keep hiding from your shadow. And this process, this forced confrontation with your whole self, is what Jung called individuation. But here's what makes this so beautiful and so terrible at the same time. The universe doesn't just randomly inflict pain on you. It creates the exact type of crisis that will help you integrate the exact aspect of your shadow that you're ready to face. If you need to learn about your own worth, you'll attract people who challenge your boundaries. If you need to discover your inner strength, you'll face situations that seem to overwhelm you. If you need to understand your capacity for love, you'll experience relationships that break your heart wide open. Every painful experience in your life is actually a carefully orchestrated lesson in becoming more fully yourself. The universe is your teacher, and pain is its curriculum. But most people miss this completely because they're so focused on escaping the discomfort that they never stop to ask what the discomfort is trying to teach them. Right now, as you're listening to this, you might be in the middle of one of these cosmic classrooms. You might be facing a challenge that feels overwhelming, a situation that seems unfair, a loss that doesn't make sense. And part of you might be wondering if you're being punished for something, if you've done something wrong to deserve this difficulty. But what if the opposite is true? What if you're experiencing this challenge because you're finally ready to grow beyond who you've been? What if this pain is actually the universe's way of saying, I see your potential, and I'm going to help you reach it, even if it means breaking down the walls you've built around your heart? Jung called this process the dark night of the soul, and he understood something that most spiritual teachers miss. This darkness isn't something to be avoided or rushed through. It's actually the most sacred part of your journey because it's where your real self is born. Think of it like this. A caterpillar doesn't just gradually grow wings and learn to fly. It has to completely dissolve inside the chrysalis. Every single cell of its caterpillar identity has to die before it can emerge as a butterfly. The same thing happens to you. Before you can become who you're truly meant to be, the person you think you are has to undergo a kind of death. And this death isn't metaphorical. It's real. It's the death of your old identity, your old way of seeing yourself, your old patterns of thinking and being in the world. This is why transformation is so painful. You're not just changing, you're dying and being reborn. And just like physical death, this psychological death brings up terror, resistance, and grief. Your ego fights against it because its job is to keep you safe and consistent. It would rather keep you small and familiar than risk the unknown territory of growth. But the universe is more committed to your evolution than your ego is to your comfort. So it creates situations that make staying the same more painful than changing. It puts you in circumstances where your old ways of being simply don't work anymore, where the strategies that used to protect you now leave you vulnerable, where the identity you've built around yourself crumbles under the weight of reality. I want you to think about a time in your life when you felt completely lost. Maybe it was after a breakup that you didn't see coming. Maybe it was after losing a job that you thought defined you. Maybe it was after a health crisis that forced you to reevaluate everything. In that moment of lostness, something incredible was happening. Your old self was dying so your true self could be born. Share in the comments below about a time when you felt completely lost and how it eventually led to something better, because I want you to start seeing these moments not as failures, but as necessary deaths that preceded your rebirths. Jung discovered that the unconscious mind has its own wisdom, its own agenda, that's often completely different from what your conscious mind wants. Your conscious mind wants comfort, predictability, safety, but your unconscious mind wants growth, authenticity, wholeness. And when these two parts of you are in conflict, the unconscious always wins. Not because it's stronger, but because it's connected to something much larger than your individual will. This is why you keep attracting the same types of painful situations until you learn what they're trying to teach you. Your unconscious mind is trying to force you to integrate aspects of yourself that you've been avoiding. It creates external circumstances that mirror your internal conflicts. If you're afraid of abandonment, you'll attract people who trigger that fear. If you're afraid of your own power, you'll find yourself in situations where you feel powerless. If you're afraid of being seen, you'll attract experiences that force you into visibility. The pain isn't random, it's purposeful. It's your unconscious mind using your external reality to show you what needs to be healed within you. And the more you resist these lessons, the more intense the pain becomes. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because it's trying to get your attention. It's trying to wake you up to something you need to see about yourself. But here's the beautiful part. Once you understand this pattern, once you start seeing your pain as guidance rather than punishment, everything changes. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of trying to escape the discomfort, you start getting curious about what it's pointing toward. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you start seeing yourself as a student in the university of life. This shift in perspective is everything. Because when you stop fighting your pain and start learning from it, you begin to work with the universe instead of against it. You begin to trust that there's a deeper intelligence at work in your life, even when you can't see the bigger picture. You begin to understand that your suffering isn't evidence of your weakness, but evidence of your soul's determination to grow. Let me tell you about the second law of transformation that Jung discovered. He found that the psyche naturally moves toward balance, toward wholeness. But this balance can't be achieved by avoiding the negative and clinging to the positive. True balance comes from integrating both light and shadow, both strength and vulnerability, both love and loss. Most people spend their lives trying to hold on to the good and avoid the bad. They want the love without the heartbreak, the success without the failure, the joy without the sorrow. But Jung realized that this approach actually prevents growth because it keeps you stuck in a one-sided relationship with life. You can't truly appreciate light if you've never experienced darkness. You can't develop real compassion if you've never known suffering. You can't discover your authentic strength if you've never felt weak. So the universe, in its infinite wisdom, ensures that you experience the full spectrum of human emotion and experience, not to torture you but to complete you. Every loss teaches you about the preciousness of what you have. Every failure shows you what success really means. Every betrayal reveals the value of true loyalty. Every moment of despair makes you capable of deeper joy. This is why trying to create a life without pain is not only impossible, but actually counterproductive. Pain is not the enemy of happiness. It's the teacher that makes true happiness possible. Without contrast, without the valleys, you can't appreciate the peaks. Without the darkness, you can't truly value the light. Think about the people in your life who have the most depth, the most wisdom, the most genuine compassion. I'm willing to bet they're not the people who've had the easiest lives. They're the people who've faced difficulty and learned from it. They're the people who've been broken and rebuilt themselves stronger. They're the people who've been through the fire and emerged with their hearts more open, not more closed. This brings us to one of Jung's most revolutionary insights about the process of becoming who you really are. He called it individuation, and it's not what most people think it is. It's not about becoming special or different from everyone else. It's about becoming authentically yourself, which paradoxically makes you more connected to others, not less. But here's the challenge. To become authentically yourself, you have to stop being who you think you should be. You have to let go of the carefully constructed persona you've built to fit in, to be accepted, to be loved. And this letting go feels like death because, in many ways, it is. It's the death of the false self, so the true self can emerge. Most people never make this journey because the false self feels safer. It's predictable. It gets approval from others. It follows the rules and meets expectations. But it's also hollow. It's exhausting to maintain. And it keeps you from ever experiencing the deep satisfaction of being genuinely yourself. The universe forces this journey on you through crisis. It creates situations where your false self simply can't cope, where the masks you wear and the roles you play no longer work, where you're stripped down to your essence and forced to discover who you really are beneath all the layers of conditioning and expectation. Maybe you've experienced this. Maybe there was a time when everything you thought you knew about yourself was challenged. When the identity you'd built your life around suddenly felt foreign. When the values you thought were yours turned out to be borrowed from others. When the dreams you thought you wanted revealed themselves as someone else's dreams for you. These moments are terrifying because they leave you feeling like you don't know who you are anymore. But Jung understood that this not knowing is actually the beginning of real knowing. This emptiness is actually the space where your authentic self can finally emerge. This death of the old is actually the birth of the new. Write in the comments about a time when you felt like you didn't know who you were anymore and how that confusion eventually led to clarity. Because I want you to start recognizing these identity crises as necessary phases of your evolution, not evidence that something is wrong with you. The third law of transformation that Jung discovered is that growth happens in cycles, not in straight lines. Just like nature has seasons, your psyche has seasons too. There are times of planting, times of growing, times of harvesting, and times of letting go. And just like you wouldn't expect a tree to bloom in winter, you can't expect yourself to be in a growth phase all the time. But our culture teaches us to always be progressing, always be improving, always be moving forward. We're made to feel like there's something wrong with us if we're not constantly achieving, constantly optimizing, constantly becoming better. This creates a tremendous amount of suffering because it goes against the natural rhythm of growth. Jung understood that there are necessary fallow periods in psychological development, times when nothing seems to be happening on the surface, but everything is happening underneath. Times when you feel stuck, confused, or lost, but actually your psyche is reorganizing itself for the next phase of growth. Times when you feel like you're going backwards, but you're actually spiraling deeper into your own truth. These fallow periods often coincide with the most painful experiences in your life. The breakup that leaves you questioning everything about love. The career setback that makes you wonder what you're really meant to do. The health crisis that forces you to reevaluate your priorities. The loss that strips away everything you thought was important. During these times, it feels like nothing good is happening. It feels like you're wasting time, falling behind, missing opportunities. But actually, these are the most productive periods of your life because they're when your unconscious mind is doing its deepest work. They're when your soul is composting everything you've experienced and turning it into wisdom. They're when your true self is gathering strength for its next emergence. The key is learning to trust these cycles instead of fighting them. Learning to see the winter of your soul as necessary preparation for spring. Learning to rest in the darkness instead of frantically searching for the light. Learning to let things fall apart so they can come back together in a new and better way. This is where most people get stuck. They can't tolerate the uncertainty of the fallow periods. They can't stand not knowing what's coming next. They can't bear the discomfort of being between identities, between chapters, between versions of themselves. So they rush back into familiar patterns, familiar relationships, familiar ways of being, even when those patterns no longer serve them. But Jung discovered that this rushing back is actually what prolongs the pain. It's like interrupting the healing process before it's complete. It's like pulling up a seed to check if it's growing. The more you interfere with the natural cycle of death and rebirth, the longer it takes and the more painful it becomes. The fourth transformation secret that Jung uncovered is that betrayal and loss are not obstacles to love. They're actually the pathway to deeper love. This sounds completely backwards to most people because we're taught to avoid pain, especially emotional pain. We're taught that betrayal means we chose the wrong person, that loss means we invested in the wrong thing, that heartbreak means we loved incorrectly. But Jung saw something different. He saw that betrayal forces you to confront your own capacity for deception. Loss forces you to face your own impermanence. Heartbreak forces you to feel the full depth of your own heart. These experiences don't close you off from love. They prepare you for real love by showing you what love is not. Think about your own experience with betrayal. Maybe someone you trusted completely let you down. Maybe someone you loved chose someone else. Maybe someone you counted on disappeared when you needed them most. In the immediate aftermath, it probably felt like you'd never be able to trust again, never be able to open your heart again, never be able to love freely again. But what happened over time? If you allowed yourself to process the experience fully, if you didn't immediately build walls or rush into another relationship to avoid the pain, what did you discover? You probably discovered that you were stronger than you thought. You probably learned to distinguish between healthy trust and naive trust. You probably developed the ability to love more deeply because you understood the risks involved. Share in the comments about how a betrayal or loss eventually made you stronger or wiser. Because I want you to see that these experiences, as painful as they are actually gifts in disguise. They're the universe's way of preparing you for the kind of love that can withstand anything. The universe operates according to a principle that Jung called compensation. This means that whatever is missing in your conscious awareness will be provided through your unconscious experience. If you've been too focused on being strong, you'll attract situations that force you to be vulnerable. If you've been too focused on giving, you'll encounter circumstances that teach you to receive. If you've been too focused on control, you'll face experiences that teach you surrender. This compensatory mechanism isn't punishment, it's balancing. Your psyche is constantly trying to achieve wholeness, and it will use whatever means necessary to bring you back into equilibrium. The pain you experience is often your psyche's way of correcting an imbalance you weren't even aware you had. For example, If you've spent years people-pleasing and ignoring your own needs, you might attract a relationship with someone who forces you to set boundaries. This person might seem selfish or demanding, and the relationship might feel incredibly challenging. But actually, this person is serving as your teacher, showing you through contrast what it looks like to prioritize your own needs. The universe is using this difficult relationship to teach you something you couldn't learn any other way. Or maybe you've always prided yourself on being independent and self-sufficient. You've built your identity around not needing anyone. Then, suddenly you face a crisis that you can't handle alone. Maybe it's an illness, a financial setback, or an emotional breakdown. This experience forces you to ask for help, to lean on others, to discover the strength that comes from vulnerability and connection. These compensatory experiences feel like they're working against you, but they're actually working for your highest good. They're bringing you qualities and capacities you didn't know you needed. They're making you more complete, more balanced, more whole. The fifth secret Jung discovered is that your greatest wound becomes your greatest gift. This is perhaps the most mysterious aspect of transformation, and it's something that most people never understand. The very thing that causes you the most pain, the experience that breaks you open the most, becomes the source of your deepest wisdom and your greatest ability to help others. Think about the people who have made the biggest difference in your life. The teachers, mentors, friends, or even strangers who said exactly what you needed to hear when you needed to hear it. I'm willing to bet that their ability to help you came directly from their own experience of struggle. They could guide you through your darkness because they had navigated their own. They could offer you hope because they had found their way from despair to peace. This is how the universe transforms pain into purpose. Your suffering becomes seasoning that flavors your compassion. Your wounds become windows through which you can see into other people's pain. Your healing becomes a healing that you can offer to others. What breaks you open doesn't break you down, it breaks you into usefulness. But this transformation doesn't happen automatically. It requires a conscious choice to find meaning in your pain, to extract wisdom from your wounds, to let your suffering serve something larger than yourself. Many people experience tremendous pain, but never make this leap. They remain stuck in victimhood, resentment, or bitterness. They let their wounds fester instead of letting them heal into wisdom. The difference between people who are broken by their pain and people who are broken open by their pain is this conscious choice to transform suffering into service, to let their mess become their message, to use what they've learned in the darkness to help others find their way to the light. Write in the comments about how your greatest challenge became a source of strength or wisdom for you. Share how your deepest pain eventually became your greatest gift. Because I want you to start seeing your struggles not as random misfortune, but as training for your life's work. Jung also understood that transformation is not a solo journey. While the inner work has to be done by you, it cannot be done in isolation. You need mirrors, you need witnesses, you need other people to reflect back to you who you're becoming. You need community to hold you while you fall apart and celebrate with you when you put yourself back together. This is why the universe often brings people into your life right when you need them most. The friend who appears just when you're feeling most alone. The mentor who shows up when you're ready to learn. The love that arrives when you finally learn to love yourself. These connections aren't coincidences, they're part of the orchestrated process of your becoming. But here's what's interesting about these soul connections. They don't always feel good in the moment. Sometimes the people who are most important for your growth are the ones who challenge you the most. The person who triggers your deepest insecurities is actually helping you heal them. The relationship that brings up all your unresolved trauma is actually helping you resolve it. The conflict that forces you to examine your beliefs is actually helping you align with your truth. This is why Jung said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The people who push your buttons are showing you where your buttons are. The behaviors that annoy you most in others are often reflecting behaviors you haven't acknowledged in yourself. The judgments you make about other people are usually projections of your own inner conflicts. When you understand this, every difficult relationship becomes an opportunity for growth. Every conflict becomes a chance to learn something about yourself. Every person who triggers you becomes a teacher, showing you what still needs to be healed within you. The universe uses your relationships as a gymnasium for your soul. Every interaction is a workout that makes you stronger, more flexible, more capable of love. The people who hurt you are actually helping you develop emotional muscles you didn't know you had. The people who disappoint you are actually teaching you to rely more fully on yourself. The people who betray you are actually showing you the difference between conditional and unconditional love. This doesn't mean you should stay in harmful relationships or tolerate abuse. It means you should extract the lesson from every relationship and then make choices that honor both your growth and your well-being. Sometimes the lesson is to set boundaries. Sometimes it's to walk away. Sometimes it's to forgive. Sometimes it's to fight for what matters. But there's always a lesson, and that lesson is always about becoming more fully yourself. As we near the end of this journey together, I want you to understand something profound that Jung discovered about the nature of suffering and transformation. He realized that the goal isn't to eliminate pain from your life. The goal is to develop a different relationship with pain, to see it not as evidence that something is wrong, but as evidence that something is becoming right. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort, trying to create a bubble of safety and predictability around themselves. But Jung understood that this approach actually increases suffering because it puts you at war with reality. Pain is woven into the fabric of existence. Loss is part of love. Uncertainty is part of growth. Death is part of life. When you resist these fundamental truths, you create additional suffering on top of the natural pain that comes with being human. But when you learn to work with pain instead of against it, when you learn to see it as information rather than punishment, when you learn to trust that it's serving your evolution, even when you can't understand how everything changes, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being a student of your experience. You stop asking why me and start asking what now. You stop trying to escape your life and start trying to understand it. This shift in perspective is what Jung called psychological maturity. It's the ability to hold paradox, to embrace both light and shadow, to find meaning in suffering without romanticizing it. It's the wisdom to know that your pain has purpose without believing that you have to suffer to grow. It's the understanding that difficulty is inevitable, but misery is optional. Think about where you are right now in your own journey. Maybe you're in the middle of a difficult period. Maybe you're facing a challenge that feels overwhelming. Maybe you're experiencing a loss that doesn't make sense. Maybe you're in one of those fallow periods where nothing seems to be moving forward. If that's you, I want you to know that you're exactly where you need to be. Your pain is not random. Your struggle is not meaningless. Your confusion is not evidence of failure. You are in the sacred space between who you were and who you're becoming. You are in the chrysalis, undergoing the mysterious transformation that will reveal your wings. You are in the dark soil where your new self is taking root. Trust the process. Trust the pain. Trust that the universe knows what it's doing even when you don't. But I also want to speak to those of you who are on the other side of a major transformation. Those of you who have walked through the fire and emerged with your gold refined. Those of you who have integrated your shadow and found your authentic voice. Those of you who have learned to love your whole self, not just the parts that are easy to accept. Your journey doesn't end with your own healing. In fact, it's just beginning. Jung believed that once you've done your own inner work, you have a responsibility to help others do theirs. Not by fixing them or trying to save them from their pain, but by being a living example of what's possible. By showing others that transformation is real, that healing is possible, that meaning can be found in the midst of suffering. Your scars become your credentials. Your story becomes your service. Your healing becomes a healing you can offer to the world. This doesn't mean you have to become a therapist or a coach or a healer in the traditional sense. It means you have to become fully yourself, because that's the greatest gift you can give to others. When you live authentically, you give others permission to do the same. When you embrace your shadow, you help others integrate theirs. When you transform your pain into wisdom, you light the way for others to do the same. The ultimate secret that Jung discovered is that individual transformation and collective transformation are not separate processes. They're the same process happening at different scales. When you heal yourself, you heal your family line. When you integrate your shadow, you help heal the collective shadow. When you become whole, you contribute to the wholeness of the world. Here's why your personal journey matters so much. It's not just about you. It's about everyone whose life will be touched by your transformation. It's about the children who will benefit from the healing you do in this generation. It's about the ripple effects of consciousness that spread out from every person who chooses growth over stagnation, authenticity over conformity, love over fear. As I bring this message to a close, I want to leave you with Jung's own words that have guided countless people through their darkest nights toward their brightest dawns. He said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." But he also said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." And perhaps most importantly, he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your pain is not your punishment. It's your pathway. Your struggles are not your setbacks. They're your setups for something greater than you can imagine. Your wounds are not your weaknesses. They're your wisdom waiting to be born. The universe isn't working against you. It's working through you, for you, and as you to create the most beautiful version of yourself that's possible. So trust the process. Trust the pain. Trust that every challenge is perfectly designed to help you become who you're meant to be. Trust that your story, with all its twists and turns, all its darkness and light, all its breakdowns and breakthroughs, is exactly the story you need to live to become the person the world needs you to be. If this message has touched your heart, if it's helped you see your own journey in a new light, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your story of transformation. Tell us about a time when your greatest pain became your greatest gift. Let us know how you're learning to trust the process of becoming who you really are. You're not alone in this journey, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you're ready to dive deeper into this work of transformation, if you're ready to embrace your shadow and step into your authentic power, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We're building a community of people who are committed to real growth, real healing, and real transformation. People who understand that the path to wholeness leads directly through the heart of our pain. Remember, you are not broken. You are breaking open. You are not falling apart. You are falling into place. And the universe is conspiring not against you, but for your highest good, even when it doesn't feel that way. Trust the journey, trust yourself, and trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should.